Right, it is 7:15, and I suspect that most of the people who want to be here are here already. So good evening, good evening. My name is Nick Draper, I'm Councillor for St Helier. And before I start, I obviously can't go right around the room, but if you're a councillor, can you put your hand up so people know? Okay, well, I'll tell you who you've got here. You've got Dickie from Merton Park, Nick from Cannon Hill, Stephen Alambritis from Ravensbury, oh gosh, I can't remember this one. Jennifer Coons from Cannon Hill. Natasha, yeah, I know it's Natasha. Natasha from Ravensbury, I can do this. Mary from Morden and also Sally from Morden. So there you go, you've got a good range of councillors here. One councillor you haven't got here tonight, very sorry to say, is Pauline Calvert, because Pauline usually chairs this, and I'm afraid she's quite unwell. So I'm sure you'll join me in wishing her a speedy recovery. Okay. Have we got any apologies? I have one. Dennis Pearce, Councillor Dennis Pearce will be here, but he won't be here till about 8 o'clock. Pardon? Peter Southgate, okay. Well, other than that, welcome to all of you. We've got an interesting mix of things today, and I'm going to start off with an open forum. Now, the open forum is not quite as open as it sounds, because you have to email your request in advance to the meeting. But we have had, is Gillian here? Was it yourself who asked about the mosque?
Yes.
Right. Well, can you repeat your question? Oh, can you when you speak, can you also put your the speaker on, because otherwise it doesn't get picked up by the volume.
Yes. Basically, I was asking if there was any update on the progress of the rebuilding of the mosque, because for some weeks, possibly a couple of months, part of the A24 has been barricaded off by the entrance, presumably to facilitate the entry of materials and equipment. And nothing seemed to be happening on the building. And I just wondered if there was any news on how things were progressing. And in fact, possibly yesterday morning or this morning, as I went past, there were signs of work going on, so perhaps my inquiry prompted somebody to do something. And then one of the reasons that I sort of was prompted to do this is that we're having work done on our house, which is also in London Road, but we have had to find places for the workers to park, because they can stay for only an hour and they're there all day. But this is kind of by the way, and I'm glad to see that the rebuilding of the mosque is progressing.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. As far as I know, the restrictions on the road itself is by agreement with Transport for London. It's not our road. But has anybody got any progress report on the mosque itself? All I can tell you, I've seen progress on the building. It is actually coming ahead. These things do take a lot of time. The fire damage was quite severe, but there are a lot of people there who are wishing the building well, and I'm sure that they will get it done as quickly as they can for their own purposes and not for ours. Thanks. Right. I also have Robert. Is Robert here? He had questions about idling. No, never mind. Okay. Well, that's that was quick then, wasn't it? So that is the end of our open forum.
Yeah, we can take any other.
All right, no, okay. I've just had I've just been, we've got a bit more time, so anybody who hasn't sent in a request, who nevertheless has something they want to bring up. The floor is yours again.
I'm speaking on behalf of my sister Elspeth, who actually did send something in, but hasn't had any reply. It was to ask what's happening about the dog control order, which seems to be languishing. A consultation was held in 2012, and I think many people said yes, they would like some sort of control, but nothing was done. And in 2014, the time in which it could be implemented had elapsed. There's been another consultation in 2017. We're now in 2019, so the 2-year period is fast approaching its end, and again, nothing has been done, and there are quite a few posts on Nextdoor, a local social media, of people saying that they really are concerned about the aggressive behaviour of some dogs in the park.
Well, I can answer the part of that one, because until very recently I was a cabinet member for parks. And yes, you're right, in 2012 there was the first consultation. It was totally inconclusive. The one in 2017 was far more conclusive, and it was pretty much overwhelming. And we're not talking about 52-48 here. We're talking about something, you know, where people genuinely wanted to have dog controls. It was complicated by various things. It ended up in legal, ended up going through various iterations. To the best of my understanding, it was going to come into force this year. I believe it may not have done so. I will check up on it and check up with the current cabinet member and see if any improvements have been made. There's no other officers can give me any more on that. That's the best I can give you. I'm sorry about that. Any other questions? Sir, introduce yourself.
He likes to hear. That's one
Anyway, I mean, I have to live in South Wimbledon, but this probably affects everybody around. I hate to raise the infamous Veolia bin collection contract again. I don't really want to go over lots and lots of old ground, other than to say it still doesn't appear to be working. It was my fault that I failed to report within 2 days the miscollections of a fortnight ago of the Wednesday recycling bin collections. But the problem is, if the recycling bins on estates, flat bins, which are the big Euro bins I use now, if they're missed 1 week, and sometimes they come the next day. But you don't know, it's a little bit of a lottery. I also have to live in a local authority whereby the vehicle breaks out on a particular road, they put up a tweet, and it appears on their website, very sorry, we can get around to these 2 or 3 roads today because we'll get there as soon as possible. So they keep you informed. So you might get information as to whether the lorry is likely to appear sometime within the next 24 or 48 hours. Because by the time you get to Saturday, which is like Friday night, you get to Philippine. And so consequently, another 5 days of the recycling is then followed up on top of it, on top of everything else, and then the operative comes the next week and with it. It leaves a nice little trail of plastic bottles, etc., all along the paths and various other places. So this is a request for more information, and also to be able to get the job done. You may also find, I believe there are also problems with Eastfield estates which are structural in terms of the collection, whereby this idea of flats less than 9 properties in have their communal bins on a weekly basis swapped for the individual bins on a fortnightly basis. It doesn't work because there's no real place to put the bins. Councillors are aware of this. I'm not aware of the solution. And finally on this, thinking ahead to the Christmas collection, I forgot to look at my dates, that every year generally it's been a mess. It's been a mess for about a fortnight afterwards. It is simply sorted out by putting some of the collections forward a day, to the Saturday before the Christmas period, a few other days, and then the next ones can then follow on with the 5 or 6 day gap thereafter. And I suggest that the councillors do actually get together with Veolia and make sure it's the councillors that make the decision to take Veolia on what to do, and not Veolia telling the council what they want to put forward to do. Thank you.
Thank you. There will be, I'm sure, in the leaders' update, information on what's happening with Veolia. Last thing first, Christmas. I've got to say, I come from Collier's Wood, and we didn't have that sort of problem over Christmas. You do get problems with Christmas trees, but that's more usually because people don't put them out when they're asked to put them out, and they don't put them out the way they're supposed to put them out. But it does cause a horrible mess, and I do appreciate that. And we have had a lot of communication with Veolia. We are in control of that particular part of the process. Can't really talk to the Eastfields estate business, though perhaps Stephen will be able to. But as far as this business of mist bins, is that a particular estate you live on?
It appeared to be all of the Wednesday of the week.
No, I'm not looking at the time, the place. Where?
I'm saying it appeared to be all of the Wednesday communal recycling bins. So although it's apparent on Hyde Park, it's also apparent on the other estates and other lots of flats which are scheduled like
Okay.
that. So.
All right. So we'll look into that as a particular high path problem. Okay. But I do appreciate. Immediately you get in this collection, particularly in larger flats, you do get people piling stuff on top of the things, and it is horrible. It is something that we're very aware of. We are working very closely with you earlier on. So, I'm not going to steal any of Stephen's thunder as far as that's concerned, because I know he's passionate to actually tell you more about it. Any other forum items, any other open forum items that anyone wants to bring up at this particular stage? Hello? Sir?
Hello, I'm Mark Gale, I live in Ravensbury. In Morden, we have a bit of a rat problem at the moment. There's a video circulating with a few 20 or 30 rats running around at the back of London Road, where behind Wimpy, Subway, and other food shops, Boots, Holland and Barrett, and so on. The council was aware and did claim they were going to do something about it, but as yet there doesn't seem to be anything. There's plenty of rats there running around as we speak. There's no bait boxes, anything like that down there. All holes where they live in the nests. I was just wondering if anyone knew if anything was scheduled to happen.
I'll ask my colleagues. Anybody got any awareness of anything that's being done about rats? I'm afraid it hasn't been reported to me. It hasn't been reported to Stephen either. But after the meeting, we'll find out from you exactly what the problem is, and we'll find out what, if anything, has been done.
Thank you.
Right. Anybody else got an open forum question? Otherwise, we'll go on to the next item. Well, in fact, it's going to be the item after next, because we're waiting on a speaker for the Bishopford Road Bridge update, which I'm sure is going to be very, very interesting to all people here, because it has been a genuine problem. Hello. Could you put your speaker on? It's the one at the bottom. Yeah, that's the one.
Hello. Yeah, I would just like to say that I've reported this to the councillors, but there's a problem with parking on Central Road, pavement parking I'm talking about, opposite the Morden Recreation Ground. There is a car that's parked right next to the hedge nearly every day. You can barely get by, you just basically have to squeeze. And then I have a picture of where another car's double parked next to that car and off on the road, and like when I had to go past, a buggy couldn't go past, a wheelchair couldn't go past. I was on my scooter, my push scooter, I couldn't get past either. And I did, as I say, email the councillors, and I only got a response from Dennis, who just didn't say there wasn't any suggestions of what could be done about it. So I'm just wondering who to raise this to, and to also make you aware. And also, I thought parking on the pavement, it is a big problem, especially with the bush there. And I've got the pictures as well, so if you want me to send, I don't know who to send it to now.
And you sent it to me, Nick Draper, I'm one of your local councillors as well. I'm very, very sorry if I didn't respond before. I've had a very, very heavy summer, to be honest. But send it to me again. We'll look at it, I'll check it through with Dennis, and we'll see if we can't get something. Because it is a constant problem.
Yeah.
It's a constant problem with one car parked on the roof. It's not for us for now. We'll get this.
Well, it's just blocking the car.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It needs
So I hear what you're saying. If it's parked illegally, and it's a constant chronic problem, we can get that sorted. It's one car, we'll get it sorted. Okay. Right, lady behind you first.
Going back to that same subject, hello there. I've looked at this so many times. I walk up Central Road, and it's not the bush that's the problem, it's people who park inconsiderately, who don't leave a gap. And that's not just in Central Road, this is everywhere. On the road down towards Eastfield's train station, railway station, they're all on the pavement. How anyone ever gets past there, I don't know. And then you brought this in, this rule and regulation, there has to be, what, a metre between the side of the car. No one ever polices that. Nobody. And I've had to walk in the road before, and I'm a fit and able person, but not with a buggy or with a scooter thingy. And I have to go in the road. It's not acceptable. Where are these people who are meant to police this particular regulation you brought out about 2 years ago? Thank you.
If I can give you a number.
Update coming up.
So there is a phone number for that team if you spot illegal parking like that. If you phone 020-8545 4661, and it's option 3, which is report illegal parking, and that's from Monday to Saturday, 7 AM to 10 PM, and then Sundays from 11:45 to 4 PM. Then that will get to the teams and they can go to that spot and react. So, right.
I reported it to them as well, and they said that certain areas of that central road, people are allowed to park. Apparently, people are allowed to park on that section. But I mean, as I say, I've got the pictures where I've had to walk into the road as well. It's just really, really dangerous, really inconsiderate, and especially when there was a double parking where you had to walk really into the road. It's just
Double parking's definitely.
yeah, but because one's on the pavement, you see. So, I mean, I don't even know why pavement parking's allowed in that bit. I don't think it should be, because I don't know, it just needs to be looked into. It's a hazard.
As I say, if it's one car, if it's chronic, and if it's illegal, okay.
I think it's different
well,
cars. It's different cars, though. It's not quite every
Well,
time.
if it's one space, okay. There is always a difficulty if it's a private piece of land. But if it's the communal pavement and it's being parked and it's causing a hazard, we can deal with it. Now, as far as generally is concerned, it is a constant problem. We do have officers who deal with it. Unfortunately, the cabinet member, Martin Welton, isn't here tonight to answer, to give you precise figures. But we do catch people, we do prosecute people, we get things changed. One thing that we can't, as a council, do is stop people from doing it in the first place. It just doesn't happen like that. People break laws, We catch them, but we can't catch everybody immediately. It's just the way of the world. Now, we've done 20 minutes, I think, of this. I think we're ready to go on to the bit you've been waiting for, which is the Bishopford Road Bridge update, because Paul McGarry and James McGinley are both here from Future Merton, and they'll tell us what's happening. Thank you very much.
The floor is yours. Do you want to be in the front here or do you want to be there?
Well,
Up to you.
yeah.
Up to you.
Everyone here okay? Or sorry, I thought I'll sit down, that's okay.
Please take your chair.
That better? So, thank you. I'm Paul McGarry. I'm the head of Future Merton, and that's the Councillor Regeneration team, but we're also responsible for traffic and highways, and in this case, bridges and structures. There's a newsletter being passed around now which gives you an update as to where we're at with the bridge, but I'll cover off some of the main points as well. So what I'll talk about tonight really is an update on where we're at with the situation of the bridge, the activities that the council is undertaking, and the next steps to get a resolution to get the bridge reopened for you. I would like to open up by saying as well, we are deeply sorry for the inconvenience and hassle this is causing. It's certainly not an event that we ever thought would happen, because we thought we'd get a flood in June. It's like when the bridge partially collapsed due to it. But that's the situation we find ourselves in, and there's a lot of activity happening behind the scenes. So where we're at really is between the 10th of June and 14th of June, there was a lot of heavy rain, and the Waddle rose across its banks and caused flooding to properties nearby. over the 4-day period following that, there was an event called a scour, where the velocity of the water in the Wandle eroded the riverbed and the river embankment. And that was where the foundations of the bridge were sitting. So it's a bridge that was built in 1894. It was built for horse and carts. It was never built for traffic nowadays. And actually the council was undertaking strengthening works at the time, so thankfully the road was closed. So with the riverbed, it sunk 4 metres. The riverbed was just scoured away, the gravel was washed away by 4 metre deep. That led to the northern arch partially collapsing and damaging the middle arch of the bridge, which is an old brick bridge. So in the early times, it was the first week or so, it was the emergency response kicked in. We were supporting the properties that were flooded and local residents. And then after that, the work has really been with the council and their contractor to stabilise that structure. What we didn't want happening was the bridge collapsing anymore, because if that went into the river, it would cause a dam and cause more flooding. So our work over that first month was really to make sure that that structure was stable and safe, to allow further works to happen. In that meantime, there was a lot of soft measures, I would say. We spotted, with the help of the residents reporting as well, vehicles crossing the footbridge, mopeds crossing the footpath. So we've done a lot of soft measures on that. They are listed on the back here, but I'll just highlight some of them now. So with help from colleagues in parking, we've put CCTV or automatic number plate cameras on the footbridge. The intention there is to catch mopeds who are driving illegally over the footbridge and endangering pedestrians. So that's now live. The footpath through Ravensbury Park, behind the wall to the north side of the bridge, a lot of people are now walking there because the main bridge is shut. We've actually put lighting in there to improve safety, more so now because we're in the winter months. We've worked with Transport for London, initially on the first lot of bus diversions. Which again, that was, people had to find new bus routes, that's caused more traffic locally, we're aware of that. And actually we've got a further update on the bus services, I'll come to the end, along with the gas works. But where we're at now with the structure, over the last month, we've now completed the works to stabilise the bridge. So what that means is the structure is now not moving, however it's still in a state of disrepair. We've also worked with the Environment Agency to backfill the hole that was in the riverbed. So that 4-metre hole underneath the bridge has now been backfilled with gravel. We've strengthened the piers that hold up the bridge with marine concrete. And there's been concrete injection mouldings in the underside of the arches to keep the bridge stable. So that's the work that's been undertaken so far. I do understand residents and councillors' concerns that there's nobody visible on the bridge with a high-vis. Partially that's because a lot of the work was happening underneath to stabilise it in the riverbank. But the stage we're at now is we've been working with insurance companies, and we've had to provide a lot of data, information to help that side of the work. And there's 2 bits of work we've commissioned, 2 reports basically. One is looking backwards to what caused the break, the flood event, and what led to the bridge partial collapse. That bit of work has now been procured, but that means there'll be inspections on the structure as it stands now. So forensic investigations to see what the structure is like and what led to it. So because of that, we had to leave the bridge as it is, so that investigation work can happen to tell us what went on to do it. There's a second report then looking forward that says what are the options open to the council to fix and repair the bridge. Is it repairable at all? Do we need to consider partial demolition? Do we have to just think of a brand new bridge? We don't know the answers to that yet, because there are people now working on it, but it's going to take a number of months to get that report concluded, which will advise us on how we actually repair and fix the bridge. So there's a lot of work happening in the background, in the council offices. I appreciate that doesn't look very visible on the road, but that's the work that's been undertaken at the moment. And there will be activity on the site in a couple of weeks' time, because the temporary dam that's in there at the moment, we're working with the Environment Agency to get that removed so that the river flow goes back to normal as we get into winter. 2 other things I was just going to update on. Gasworks updates, and then the bus services updates, and then we can take questions. When the bridge partially collapsed, it actually broke a lot of utility lines which were in the road surface. So that was electricity, broadband, gas and water. Many of those services have been diverted through new pipes alongside the bridge. However, the gas wasn't reconnected over the bridge. The gas network, Southern Gas Network, rediverted the gas network around the existing network around the streets. That's fine. However, we're now approaching a period where people are using the heat more, gas is being used more, and actually the gas pressure in the neighbourhood needs boosted because the missing link in the bridge. So Southern Gas Networks approached us about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, explaining they'd have to do a bit of improvement work in the local area around Ravensbury. So there'll be no road closures, there'll just be small diversions in streets, but the streets affected are going to be the Drive, Aris Avenue, Victoria Avenue, Leonard Avenue, Seddon Avenue, Florence Avenue. So it's not whole roads being done, but there's certain junction points in the gas network where Southern Gas needs to boost those supplies. So again, because they've let the time taken to do these studies on the bridge, we need to ensure that the gas supply to Ravensbury is up to pressure, so we're working with the gas company on that. We've also had a lot of requests. While the bus diversions are on, there's been a lot of feedback around actually that's fine, it can go where those bus routes were going, but a lot of people want to get to Morden to get the tube. And there isn't a direct bus service now because of that. We've been liaising with TfL, and they are listening to our request to have a shuttle bus or a specific service which will serve Ravensbury and Morden Station. It's looking positive. I can't confirm it yet, but TfL have agreed to put an additional service. They are currently looking for a bus operating company to run that service. They have to put that contract out. So once we know who that is, we'll let you know when that new bus service will be active. We're just waiting for confirmation from TfL when it goes live. But in effect, they need bus drivers and a bus company to run that service as part of their additional operations. I think that's all for now. It's probably best that we take questions from the floor and exchange.
Good evening, I'm James McKinley. I'm the Assistant Director for Sustainable Communities with the remit of the highways and structures. It goes without saying that it's been a real frustration, and we understand that part of this evening is that we're all open and honest with you and telling what we're doing. To give some indication of timescales, we've commissioned the work on the redesign of the bridge. That'll come back before Christmas, and that's not one where we'll be saying it's an absolute repair or it's an absolute new build. That'll give us those options, and what we'll assess is what's the right one based on what's the lifespan of the repair versus a new build, what's the cost. But we've been instructed by some of our key members to make sure we do that as swiftly as possible, so we've got our designers working on that. One thing I did want to raise is that you're conscious that we're coming into the winter months. So a number of things that we're proposing to do. One is to put better boardings around the site. At the moment, we are aware that it's going to travel unsightly, so we'll be looking to do something there that is more pleasing. We've issued a newsletter that's going to be put out monthly, but in addition, we will update the website more frequently as things happen. So when the bus route is confirmed, we'll make sure that that's on the website. One of the key things that we're looking at is, particularly in relation to Ravensbury Park, the wall that is on the boundary of the bridge. During the winter months, we are aware that that's going to cause some community safety issues, or at least the perception of safety washing through Ravensbury Park. So we are looking seriously at taking that down. We want to have a dialogue with the local neighbours to the wall, but we feel that it would be appropriate to look at taking that down, even if it's for a temporary period, and then look at reinstating it when the works are complete. Because that, I think, will aid people's opportunity to walk through that park with the increased lighting that's there and feeling safer, because we are aware that it's the primary route. The other thing I just wanted to say is that the timetable in terms of the rebuild we will know towards the end of December, and we will keep people updated. It will be something that we will have to work through with members in terms of approvals for, but we'll do that as swiftly and as diligently as possible. But we're happy to take any questions.
Well, two things. Can I just correct? That wall and that path and the lighting is not in Ravenswood Park. It's in Watermead's estate. It's nothing to do with the park. All right? And then the second thing is, I don't understand why the wall is presenting such a fearful place to walk by. It's just as bad the other side of the wall. You had a pavement this about a foot wide before. Now they're just walking the other side of the wall. What's the difference? You put lighting up. Why have you got to take a wall down, for God's sake?
Because we've had a large amount of feedback that said that people are feeling unsafe walking through that, particularly as we're coming in. You asked me, so I'll respond, which is we're looking at it because in winter that is the primary route across that part of the borough. It is going into a park. The wall is causing a lack of natural surveillance, so we're looking at it, and I think it's something that we're responding to feedback from local residents. We had a morning on the bridge where a lot of the feedback from residents was about the wall, and opinions were mixed. Some people don't like to see it coming down. That's why we're proposing if we do take it down, if it's the right thing to do, it's not about a permanent solution, it's about doing it as an interim solution while we get the final solution for the bridge. The bridge is reopened and the wall can be reinstated.
It's not a listed wall, is it, Bonnet?
It's not.
Will you make sure it does say Ravenswood Park, but it's not in the park, it's in
Apologies
Watermead
if
estate.
I've got the wrong location, but yeah.
Okay,
So,
There you go. Sorry, three or four little questions. Going backwards, on the bus service, I understand when Walpole Road was closed, Thames Water, who were responsible for that, provided a complimentary no-charge bus service with a local operator. Merton does have a community transport thing. If no fares are charged, you don't need to worry about telling TfL, you can just get on another bus service for the benefit. So you don't necessarily need to involve TfL if you think you can fund it elsewhere within that. Secondly, are you looking at other bridges, both on the Wandle and on other rivers through the borough where, obviously, depending on this report, there is a possibility that a similar incident could take place? Thirdly, given that sort of like bridges used to be knocked out during World War II and temporary baby bridges were put in place, are you looking at the possibility of a temporary bridge at some point, if it looks like doing a full-term repair is going to be a long thing? Fourthly,
can I leave it at that? Because
I've just got two more short questions. Yeah. Is your report likely to say what impact? I understand vehicles now can go up to a gross vehicle weight of 44 tonnes. Has that had any impact on this? I'm not quite certain what the maximum weight is these days. And fifthly, can you stay for the climate emergency presentation? Because it does look as if part of this possibly precipitated this event and possible future ones. Thank you.
Well, if I answer the last question first, of course we'd stay for the climate change discussion. The bus service, so I understand that there's been requests for purchase a shuttle service, but what we've looked at is actually what's the use and the passenger demand for that. And the reason we've been working with TfL rather than community transport is one of the things that TfL have been very keen to make sure that we're aware of is actually it's the frequency and the regularity of the bus services, and that actually requires quite a lot of vehicles, heads working with them, because the starting point is going to be Rose Hill down through Wandle Road up to Morden Station. And I think the reliable service is going to come through with TfL. So that's why we've been having that dialogue. I'm going to ask Paul to speak to the bridges and structures and also the axleway. But if I can touch on the temporary bridge, we have looked at what the opportunity was to introduce a temporary bridge. I think that, and I don't see this to be in any way flippant, but there have been lots of situations where bridges have been able to, temporary bridges have been able to be built very quickly. However, we've had to liaise with the Environment Agency as well as our own highways team. And the underpinnings for a temporary structure are actually quite significant in terms of how it sits on the actual riverbed, how it sits on the river bank, and given the state of that river, going into winter, it's just not going to be practical to introduce further potential obstructions in the bridge, in the river, and therefore it's not something that we can see being a viable option. Put to one side the fact that it's private land, etc., that there's lots of people that have to be involved. Actually, the impact on the river flow is potentially very significant, and it's not a risk that we feel we can take. So we have looked at it, and we've looked at it earnestly. But I'll ask Paul if he can do the technical aspects of bridges.
As technical as it can be. So your question about bridges and structures generally, the council is responsible for around 50 bridges and structures around the borough. Some of that are bridges over water, train lines, footbridges, underpasses as well. We get regular funding from Transport for London annually, and that's to carry out our bridge inspections. So what we have is a programme of inspecting all the bridges and structures, or in phases as we do it, and that tells us where we need to invest, repair or strengthen bridges. That's actually what happened with Bishopford. We were already in there doing waterproofing works and bridge deck strengthening works. So what we do a regular programme of inspections, which leads to a capital programme of repairs and maintenance. So then that still carries on. But that's what we were doing at Bishopford. In terms of the tonnage of vehicles, that's where my knowledge of weights of vehicles and whether that contributed or not. It's probably led to why we were strengthening the bridge in the first place. I wouldn't say it led to the collapse, but I mean it's a main road anyway. It's a main road. But there was nothing that suggested it needed a HGV ban or anything.
Any other questions? Madam, at the back.
Just 2 points, please. The barriers have gone in, which is very helpful, but there are pools of water at both ends, 4 to 5 inches deep, and there's only sand there. Could somebody do something about that? Because I have to jump that. Now, I can jump that, but a lot of people can't. That's one point. Secondly, I have lived in my house backing onto Poultice Park for 50 years. That bridge, for me, at night, has always been a concern. We normally have lights with cars coming across to help us, but you are hidden by that wall. When the sports ground opened, that did help greatly. But now going through the park, I find that I feel very vulnerable, and I know I was stalked. I just know it. I went on to next door, and I said, please be careful, because I know somebody followed me there. I was lucky because a couple was in front of me, and I ran up to them and walked through with them. Now, it is still quite dark and quite frightening walking through the park. So when you're considering maybe rebuilding the bridge, could you consider the people that have to walk where you are hidden when you're going through on the left-hand side, going south? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So the first point about the paths just before they get into the footbridge, they were gravel before because it's a natural setting. We did see that actually with the increased use of cyclists using that route, the gravel was getting kicked up, and now with the wet weather it's creating puddles where...
But there's only sand there.
Yeah.
It's just sand.
So we backfilled it, but we know that's not working. Yeah. We made arrangements with our highway team to go in and actually just tarmac that path from right up to the bridge, so that's work that's in train now.
Thank you.
We've also requested that could we widen the path slightly, because it was only meant to be a footpath, but now it's a cycle route at the moment as well. Certainly the point about the current bridge, it only has a narrow footpath anyway, because of the age. Part of the study going forward is, if it is a new bridge, we do it to modern standards. So thank you for that.
So.
Hello there. I'd just like to ask regarding the what happened report. Firstly, I'd just like to ask, we're talking about the scouring and the flood. Was that the verdict of the report, and that's decided that was the actual reason for the collapse? That was my first question. And secondly, there's been a lot of research done on bridges, obviously, and why bridges collapse and when they collapse and when they're most vulnerable. And from what I understand, they are most vulnerable during construction and during maintenance. With that in mind, I'd like to ask, was there any form of contingency planning before the work was undertaken? Obviously, in the situation we're in at the moment, that would have been very useful. And if there wasn't, why not? Just to reiterate what this lady was saying here, I was going to say about I was asked by a number of local residents about the flooring and the sand, so that's very good to hear. Also, I was walking over the bridge the other day and there were an elderly couple both using mobility scooters, and they got stuck in the sand, and I had to help them out. Their issue was that, yes, the surface is very bad, but there are barriers at one end of the park and there are barriers at the other end of the bridge. The barrier they found the most difficult was the one in between, immediately as you're coming off the bridge and into the park. And their point was, well, why do we need a barrier here? Because there's barriers at either end. That one was the most difficult for them, and perhaps to do with the road surface was their concern. I think I have just one more question.
Come back to that one.
And really, sorry, I had a couple of points, but other points, but that's fine for now. Thank you.
Just in terms of what's happened, we commissioned a completely independent study on that. We won't get that back until next month. We believe that it's entirely appropriate that that should be as thorough as possible, and they request a lot of information. That information is not just obviously what happened on the day, it's also looking back and saying what happened during the period leading up to the event, because as you're aware there was a flood event a few days prior to the actual bridge collapse. So that's something that we commissioned completely independently, underway, and it's only at that point so that I can come back and say what the contributory factors. I think that we'll be able to understand. We asked about contingency planning. When we do work, we obviously have a method statement, that's the fancy term we use to have a plan that says what's going to happen. And in the case of the working on the river, we also have to have that approved by the Environment Agency because they're responsible for the river. So that says what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what's our contingency plan, and therefore that's all approved. Part of the investigation will look at the robustness of that. We're not immune to lessons learned, so we need to allow that to take its place. In terms of contingency planning, we've got contingency planning in the event of something happening with the actual construction itself, but more generally the council has contingency resilience plans to deal with an episode. It could be an event such as the bridge, but something that we also have to deal with as a significant fire or something like that, and we have those departmentally as well as corporately, and they're a matter of course for what we do. You asked about the access to the barriers. I'm very happy to take that feedback because there's a fine balance. The reason we put those barriers in is because those pesky motorcyclists were using it. If we got it that it's not working for people that aren't able to use mobility scooters,
very difficult.
Happy to.
And obviously that's really important. But it's that tricky thing where obviously you've got to have mobility scooters to get through, but therefore scooters can get through as well.
Yeah, so it's that fine balance, but if there's something we can do, we're happy to look at it. But also the reason for both ends is the drivers of the scooters will take advantage of whatever opportunity they see, and if they don't see a barrier at one side of the bridge, they may not get across to the barrier at the other side of the bridge, and that's when they'll go down. We wanted to make sure that they see from both sides. We've got the automatic number plate to catch them, and we will prosecute, and we're hoping that the time that habit will cease and they won't get out there. But we're very happy to see that we're adjusting.
Is there any feedback on how successful it is?
So that's something we're collating, and it's the kind of thing that we'll want to update the web page and let you know how many we prosecute. We're hoping that as time's gone by and they've seen the barriers, they've seen the cameras, that actually they're ceasing to do it because they know that they're crossing out again. then find outweighs the saving on the journey time.
In my experience, it's only a little bit.
Well,
I think it's may change. Sir?
Good evening. I've just got two questions. The first one's on timescales. So the Christmas report's going to come in by Christmas. What is the council mechanism for making a decision, and how long will that take? And so that just leads into how long will it take before what's an indicative timescale before the bridge can actually open? I know there's many options on the table, but you should have a decent feel for it. And then the other question was, with the additional gasworks, I've noticed that there's been quite a large increase in traffic around Morden. Is there a particular plan for these works, or are these works just happening because they're emergency and they just have to be done?
I'd like to take the question of the timescales. The report coming back will come up with some options. We've not put a request for work that's very open-ended, so it's what are the options and what are the recommendations. In terms of the decision-making process for the council, it will depend on the value of the works. We have contracts that are already established, and it's below that threshold. It's a straight through, we don't have to seek approval for it, it's already pre-approved. If it exceeds that amount, we have to go to Cabinet for approval. There's already an allocation for funds to deal with the bridge, and we maximise that to take account of there may well be a rebuild option. The bit that will cause a timescale is if we have to go out and procure the actual construction of the bridge. That will be the thing that will be the longest part, apart from actually the construction works itself. We've been tasked with minimising that, still making sure it's robust in terms of use of public money, but nevertheless, when we get the report back, and we're not going to sit and wait for that report to get back. We'll be working with the consultants right through the process to understand what the options may be, and we're ruling things out quite early that allows us to accelerate the decision making. We'll do that. But if it does come that it goes with the bill beyond the threshold, which is quite reasonable, then we will go for approval. The leader of the council has made a commitment that requires a special cabinet meeting to do so. That will be held. And then, in terms of the final timescale, you're asking me something that if it's a repair, it could be a few months. If it's a rebuild, it could be considerably longer. So I really don't. I feel that if I did something, I could potentially be misleading you, and I really don't want to do that. But I think realistically, if it's a full rebuild, we're talking about summer of next year at the earliest.
Has anybody who hasn't spoken before that to answer the question?
Yeah, it's your question about the traffic and gasworks. So yes, we do have regular network coordination meetings with all the utility companies to plan and planned works in Merton, so that there's not a clash of resurfacing roads or gas coming under water. However, when it's an emergency, that's largely uncontrollable. So if it's an emergency, we have to have it happen. The works around Ravensbury, it's not an utter emergency, but we did take the view that it's better to get in now and do those gas upgrades around Ravensbury rather than wait till like February, January when people are needing the gas more and more for heating. So that was more of a judgment call. The impact on traffic in Morden, we can monitor that because TfL is the main traffic highway authority through the town centre. We can monitor if there's drastic changes in traffic flow. Are you talking about residential streets around the area or just the main roads?
Just residential streets around from Roseville down to the park.
Yeah, so I mean, a large part of that is because the bridge is out. We have worked with TfL to put the diversion signs way earlier in the Sutton and Rose Hill roundabouts to take people up St Helier Avenues so that people aren't just driving into missions for them, trying to find their way through. We can't often control that running really, but we can, if we need to enhance the diversion signage, we look at that.
I just do want to assure you, if as we monitor the traffic flow, if we see that further works that are planned having an impact on essential works will not progress while well there's an impact on the highway through the gas works.
So you had was this a question that you've forgotten about?
Yes, I have just two final questions. One was just to support the lady behind me. That footbridge there is quite a popular drinking spot. It's quite a popular hangout, and I can understand why she would feel unsafe. I don't know whether any form of antisocial drinking ban has been considered in that area of the park there, and whether that would be useful to make local people feel a bit safer. It is very dark on that bridge still, even though there is lighting in the actual park. My other question finally was regarding the wall. I don't know if anybody's aware of whether that is a spandrel wall, and basically that means it's part of the bridge and is meant to transfer loads way into and along and away from the bridge, because obviously that could have an impact on any kind of work taking it down or anything like that. And that's all. Thanks.
Right, I'm sorry, I meant to ask you, would it be the council's responsibility or the contractors to have ensured there would have been a structural survey before it was attempted to rebuild the bridge?
Yeah, so the wall we don't believe is actually structurally it's not part of the bridge. We don't believe we think it's probably an estate boundary at some point in time before Waterman's was built. We checked with the conservation officer. It's not listed. We don't. It's no heritage status, but it is in the conservation area, being part of the park. So we don't believe it's part of the bridge.
Well, my reason for asking is I went to a coffee morning that was held on the bridge, and I was talking to a chap. And he said categorically, this is hearsay because I've got no proof that this is true or not, he actually said that there was no structural survey carried out and it was resting on the riverbed. And I asked him who he was and he said he was a council official.
Just say the reason for the work taking place was because there was a structural survey that determined that the bridge needed upgraded. But we had to work with the structure of the building of the bridge as it was. And I think as already been said, I think it's 1842 when the original structure was up. Nevertheless, the works that were planned took that in mind and followed professional advice internally and externally, determined that what was being done was fit and proper. And again, until the analysis of what happened comes back, I'm not in a position to say whether that was a contributory factor. So the bridge, in terms of structural integrity, full series of studies and
Thank you.
Okay, everything else, very, very, very quick one.
On the 5th of October, a temporary restriction of traffic was placed on Morden Road between 177 and 199. It's not very well publicised there, particularly there are yellow sheets on the telegraph poles, but no one's paying attention to it and no enforcement has been done. Obviously, it slows down the traffic as soon as a National Express bus comes along or one of the recycling containers come through.
Just is that the parking ban up around Ravensbury Estate?
Yeah, just past the Surrey Arms Pub towards Morden.
Yeah, I'm happy to publicise that more widely on our columns and social media. It's actually about enforcement. Yes.
Signage on, rather than your official notices, I think no weight on the sign or something.
Yeah, so we can arrange for more on-site signage and get our enforcement team doing more regularly. So thanks for that.
Right, I'm anxious to get us on to climate change. It's obviously on everybody's thoughts at the moment. I'm assuming that nobody here has been arrested as yet. But away from all of that, and away from all of... Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Away from all the publicity and all the pizzazz, this is something which exercises us enormously. I'm very pleased to be able to tell you that Merton has just been, Friends of the Earth just said that we are the joint second best borough in London on addressing climate change. We're doing far better than an awful lot of boroughs. We make an awful lot more noise about how well they do, like Sutton and in particular Kingston. But nevertheless, I don't want to steal your thunder, because I know that Katie can actually speak about it far better than me. So the floor is yours, Katie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Walter. I'm the Climate Change Officer at Merton Council. Can you hear me? No.
Do you want to stand close to this?
You sit down.
Sit
down.
Try standing up, look back to
Yeah, I am closer to the microphone than my colleagues. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the fact that we declared a climate emergency in July. So I'm going to explain a bit about what that is, a little bit about the evidence that we have to think about climate change, and also how you can get involved. So when we looked at the impacts that Merton as a borough has on climate change. If you think about most emissions are a result of using gas when you switch on your heating, electricity, and also from petrol and diesel vehicles. If you count all of those up, you get about 500,000 tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions every year from Merton. If you think about some of the more indirect ways that emissions are caused, so for example, if Merton residents take flights outside the borough, or if you think about the impact of the food people eat or the packaging that surrounds food, for example, you can increase that estimate to maybe 1 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions a year or more from Merton as a borough. And that's why Merton Council in July decided to declare a climate emergency. That climate emergency declaration was a unanimous decision by all councillors regardless of their political leanings, and it did 3 things. So the first thing it did was set targets. We have a target to decarbonise Merton Borough by 2050, and that's in line with both national legislation and the Mayor's aspirations, the London Mayor's aspirations. We also want to go faster on the emissions associated with the council's buildings and services. We feel that that's a really important role that the council should play. So we've set ourselves a target to work towards a carbon neutral council by 2030. So those are the targets that we've set. The declaration also committed to forming an action plan, so that's what I'm going to mostly talk about in this talk. And it's also committed to setting up a working group of residents and businesses who would like to get involved. So that's already happened. We've had our first working group meeting at the end of September. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the evidence is indicating about the pace and the scale of change that might need to happen. So if you think about the way that Merton uses its energy, so for example in homes and businesses, we have about somewhere in the region of 88,000 homes. If you look to try to decarbonise all of those homes by 2050, you're really looking at a rate of change of about 3,000 homes a year. So that would be to replace your gas boiler with an electric alternative, to become more energy efficient, to maybe put some renewable energy like solar panels on your roof. It's a similar sort of situation with transport. So if you think about the fact that there's about 72,000 cars registered in Merton, you'd need to find alternatives to those petrol and diesel vehicles at the rate of about 2,500 a year every year to 2050. So we're really talking about very big transformations which are very challenging and potentially costly. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you might want to do about it and how you might want to get involved. So I guess if you think about the fact that Merton, about 97.5% of the emissions that are emitted from Merton are really beyond the council's direct control, because it's emissions from houses, from cars that the council don't own. So the main thing that I wanted to say is individual choices really matter. And so things like the way that you use your energy, the way that you travel, maybe the way that you eat, so potentially eating less meat, for example, they can have a real positive impact on climate change. So I hope nobody here feels like it's too big a problem and you can't do anything about it, because I really think you can. If you want more advice about that, there's a good checklist on Sustainable Merton's website. So you can Google that and find a really good checklist of things that you can do. The second thing is that there's some good examples of groups of people who have come together to want to do something. So, for example, there are community energy projects and people who want to think about preventing waste. These groups of people can really make a difference as well. And if you are doing something like that, or want to do something like that and don't know how to get started, I'd be really interested to hear from you. And the third thing is that you can really get involved with what the council are doing. So myself and some colleagues are looking at working up this action plan, as I was telling you about. This action plan, the idea is to produce that. So we're consulting over the next few weeks, so we've got a survey that's coming online in a few weeks. So if you Google climate emergency and Merton, it'll come up as soon as we can finalise it. So please feel free to fill in that survey. It's got some questions about what you're doing already or what you'd be willing to do, and also some open boxes so that you can put in whatever ideas you have about what you would like to see in that action plan. The working group is chaired by Councillor Byers, and it has a mixture of residents and businesses and other groups on there. They are looking to work with people who want to work with them. And we've got, on our website, we've got the minutes of the meetings and the papers and things. So if you want to get involved in that, you can get in touch with myself, because I run the Secretariat, or Councillor Byers. And if you have, and also you can feel free to contact me directly if you have something substantial that you want to discuss in relation to the action plan. So that's all I wanted to say about the climate emergency, but I have one plug as well before questions. So one of the things we're doing at the moment is promoting a scheme called Solar Together. The scheme is run by the Mayor of London. The idea is that if you want solar panels and you haven't bought them yet, you can register for Solar Together. You can go through a series of questions and it will estimate how much you might spend, but you've got no obligation. Then on the registration closes on the 21st of October, which I think is Monday. So you must register before then if you're interested. That registration, there's no obligation for you don't pay over any money, or you're not obliged to buy the products at that point. And then the Mayor of London chooses a preferred supplier. And because lots of people register, they can bargain the price down. So you'll get good quality solar panels at a much lower price than the going market rate. And then they tell you how much, and then you can choose whether to go ahead or not. So if you're interested in that, we've got some leaflets there, or you can Google Merton Solar Together and check the right website.
Thank you very much. No go. Questions? Questions, Katie? So,
Sorry, I think I've got about 8 short ones here. And I think it's, just in case anyone else asks any other questions, I think one of the previous ones, there was a bit of confusion about what you're doing, which is climate change, and other aspects that the council may be looking at, particularly in relation to transport, which is air quality. Although they are related, we are particularly looking at what we can do about climate change here. And I think there's a number of things which Future Merton could help you and you help them with in terms of their planning. For example, in Morden Town Centre and the long-term proposals for Wimbledon, things like taller buildings, the potential for vertically hanging solar panels, which can be adjusted as daylight changes if they are appropriate. The insistence on triple glazing in new office, industrial and residential buildings. How much does that incrementally result in a carbon saving? Your comments about the number of houses one has to go through in terms of insulation and solar. If you actually break it down, it works out in about 10 per day. So it's not an unachievable target by any means. I think if you look at food, one of the problems is people may be switching to soybean, but if that's being fed to cattle, you then have a loss of potential rainforest areas. You could plug peas. Apparently, they are better for better for people. There's even more protein in there is in soybeans, and they can be grown in more temperate climates, including the UK. One may wish to look into, or doesn't wish to look into, congestion charging for Merton and stop all these pesky vehicles from Sutton going past Rose Hill. That's something else. One may wish to campaign long term on public transport. If it's a lot actually carrying around the weight of batteries. Some people here may remember the days of trolley buses into Mitcham and Wimbledon, and the 1950s advertising a barrier tram with a Leyland diesel bus. Obviously, we now know with hindsight it's totally wrong. A lot of people.
What was your question, Katie?
What I'm saying is there something in the in terms of the transport plan whereby Merton could evaluate our trolley buses better than battery?
Hang on. The question. I think I'd just like to make it so other people get have a chance to talk as well. So for 5 years.
So,
any questions there?
So, in relation to the transport agenda and climate agenda, would you like a response on that? Yeah. There's a good crossover between climate and air quality in transport, and essentially, the less petrol and diesel vehicles that are on the roads, the better it is for both air quality, active travel and climate change. So we're really looking at so there's an existing air quality action plan and a local implementation plan for transport. So we're really looking at ways that we can increase the synergy between those two.
Okay, and I can take Eve next.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment about the suggestion of solar panels, vertical solar panels. If the building is going to be shaded, they're completely useless. I did an architectural walk in London a year or two ago, and there was a classic example of a building that had been built with solar panels to power the lift and other items in the building. And a few years later, 4 or 5 years later, another building was built directly opposite the completely shaded building. So you need to actually think about these things rather than just doing them. And also with tall buildings, of course, we get a lot of microclimates, a lot of winds and specs and so on. So we need to think about tall buildings.
Yeah, so we've been working, so I'm in Paul and James's team, so we have been working closely on things like the Morden regeneration project. So as an example, one of the things we've done is won some funding to bring some expertise on to advise us on the sustainability of the current plans. the purpose of that is to bring in some innovative ideas that we might not have thought of and to test those. The extent to which they'll end up in the final product, we have yet to see. But we're really looking at ways that we can maximise that sustainability. Another example is that we're looking for some technical support to see if there are ways that we can increase the energy efficiency and be as independent of gas as possible. So there are quite a few lines that we're going in all of the major regeneration projects that we've got on.
Katie, thank you very much for your input. Yesterday evening, some of us met with Merton's Youth Parliament, and the topic there was climate change. And they had a wealth of very sensible suggestions. And I wondered if you were considering getting perhaps members from the Youth Parliament or from some of our schools to be part of that, because it's really what previous generations have done to damage our environment and the up-and-coming generations are suffering from. So it has, in one way, a huge impact on them because they've got all their years to live. So I think their input would be really valuable. And there's some very bright youngsters there ready to contribute, very sensible.
Yeah, so you met my colleague Dominique, who's the other climate change officer, yesterday, so she attended that session. We're really keen to get young people involved, and we've been talking to the officers who are responsible for running the Youth Parliament and the young inspectors. I don't know whether you know about those, so we have young people coming in.
Martin was there.
Yeah. And assessing our activities from a young person's perspective. We are intending to adapt the survey that we're producing for young people with the hopes to distribute it through schools. We're looking to get a couple of young people, or young residents, onto the climate emergency working group that we formed. And we're also trying to get a young person climate advisory panel going. So we're trying to reach that as much as possible, because I couldn't agree with you more.
So,
yes, one of the issues discussed, brought up by the mayor, was that Transport for London is trying to renew all the bus fleet in electric buses, and at the moment there are two buses, two lines which are fully electric. One of them is from Barnet to Camden, and the other one is also in north of London. I would have thought Merton, with its green tradition, Merton had a green rule, and you said yourself, Friends of the Earth commended Merton, would have campaigned and looked into assisting bus operators to have chargers installed so they are the first to get those electric buses. And we have some lines which are run throughout the whole borough. 163, Wimbledon, Morden, through Rains Park. It's solely within the borough. I mean, that could be one of the first bus routes that operates within the borough, and it's full electric. So my question is anybody in the new department looking at the infrastructure required for those to be in place for the bus operators to adopt that technology quicker?
So I mentioned the work that we were doing, for example, with the Morden regeneration project. So those are exactly the sorts of ideas that we want to start absorbing and thinking carefully about. We're aware of TfL's plans to electrify buses. I can't tell you what's going to be in the action plan because we're still in the consultation process. But I can certainly take that on board.
And perhaps liaise with colleagues in the other boroughs and on this issue.
Yes.
And we're talking about transport and air quality. The other two contributors to air quality is the fact that a lot of us that drive internal combustion engine ICE or vehicles still leave the engine running when loading, unloading the cars, dropping kids to school. Boroughs like Camden have introduced fines. Well, first of all, education, but for the repeat offenders, they actually fine people for leaving the ancient wagon. I mean, it happens nowadays when people receive deliveries at home, even groceries. I've noticed Sainsbury's leaving the engine running for 5-10 minutes whilst they unload all the grocery, dealing with the customer. The same with the taxis. You know, they're waiting for late at night.
I then tell you that my colleague Martin Welton is working on precisely that point. And on the point of the buses, well, I don't disagree with anything you said. Our local London representative, Yoni Cooper, is particularly strong on this, and she has been campaigning to get electrification of our buses south of the Thames. She's a representative from Merton and from Wandsworth, and she's really, really keen on this. So you're not a lone voice, don't worry.
Thank you. Thank you.
In terms of the engine idling as well, and cross-party as well, that the signs are going up everywhere. I'm lucky enough to have one outside my office where I work, which really has, because I'm next to the kids' playgroup and all kinds of things, and that is actually working, and at least it gives me a voice now. When I go out and say, look, it's really signed out,
exactly, because
and it is happening, I can vouch for that.
I'm trying to do my bit as a responsible citizen, and sometimes I feel in a bad position because drivers, first of all, they don't realise what I'm talking about initially. And it will be much easier for the railway crossing, where we know we're going to wait for 3 or 4 minutes. It's not just a traffic light, it's the railway crossing. You know, you're going to see the rail coming, you're going to see the barrier, you're going to have all the time in the world.
Fully understand.
So it should be signposted, and that's one thing which the borough can do. It's not just
we are doing
6%.
We are doing it, and you will see change. Change doesn't happen like that, but it happens. I can take one.
I've got one more question, if I may.
Okay.
It's also on equality, and we were talking about decarbonising the borough and the fact that we want to transfer from gas to possibly heat pumps, which are much cleaner, run on electricity, they're very efficient. But gas, and I'm not advocating for gas in any way, but however, gas is much more cleaner to build, to burn and to heat buildings. But we have a problem nowadays with people, more and more people burning wood to heat their homes. It's becoming fashionable. I see now chopped wood being sold in petrol stations for people to burn in their own homes. When you burn wood, it makes smoke. And we live in a city. Wimbledon, Morden, Mitcham is densely populated. We're not out in the woods, we're not out in the countryside. Why does the council doesn't protect, you know, in accordance with the Clean Air Act, they should ban the sale of those things?
I believe again that my colleague Toby Byers is working on precisely that one. He's not alone in that. It's a cross London problem. It's something that we are aware of and we're looking at.
It's a fallacy to try to ban, to actually talk about banning, not banning, but phasing out boilers and then allow people to burn more wood.
So I agree with you on the evidence about the air quality emissions associated with wood compared to gas. Your point's taken.
Exactly. When I speak with manufacturers, they're actually trying to greenwash it. They say, no, but wood is a green, renewable combustible. It is green, but do it in the countryside, not in a built-up area.
So national government has produced an air quality strategy, and that's one of the things that they are intending to consult on, is to remove the right to burn wood in urban areas. So you know, that is a.
Yeah, it's not being ignored. It's not a problem that's being ignored. Now, I'm afraid that's the last thing that we're going to talk about on climate change, I'm afraid, because we've got one more item left, and that is the leader of the council's report. Here he is. He isn't trained to be a patriarch of Greek Orthodox Church. He's just a son of growth. But he'll tell you more about that, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you for inviting me to this series of community fora. What I wanted to start off with is the case of Peter, Mr. Peters. This is an anonymised case study, and it is about someone who is real, but what's happened to him is real. So if you bear with me, it's very important in terms of this council and what it does for people, for real people with real problems, and it's repeated throughout the country. So Mr. Peters was born in 1923 and he's 96 years old. He lives in Merton, he lives alone in his 2-bedroom maisonette. Mr. Peters is never married and has no children. He has a nephew who lives in the Midlands. He's an independent man, able to warm up his meals. His next door neighbour is very supportive and they look after each other. Sadly, Mr. Peters recently had a fall at home. He was on the floor for a few hours. He was found by his neighbour who called for an ambulance. Mr. Peters has high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, and during his stay in hospital he was also diagnosed with having Alzheimer's disease. Upon discharge from hospital, a team from Merton Council visited Mr. Peters to undertake a programme of re-ablement and an assessment of his needs. They asked what would Mr. Peters like to achieve, what things interested him, what hobbies and interests did he have, and how could they support him to regain his skills. Mr. Peters said he felt low due to his Alzheimer's diagnosis. But together, between him and the re-ablement team from Merton, they devised a plan and set some goals for him to achieve. This re-ablement plan was put in place by the London Borough of Merton, as a lot of councils do. Mr. Peters would receive 4 calls each day. Morning for support with personal care, afternoon for support with preparing lunch, tea time again for support with domestic tasks, medication and light meal, and then in the evening support with preparing for bed. Occupational therapist also visited. Equipment was installed at home to support him manage his own personal care. He received a raised toilet seat and frame, a raised chair and bath board, and wide enough to support with using the bath to wash. Re-ablement support workers also supported and provided supervision in personal care, washing, dressing and undressing for Mr. Peters. Support workers also supported with regaining domestic skills. They helped with purchasing a new microwave, and eventually Mr. Peters could warm up his meals. The neighbour said that they could currently do the shopping for Mr. Peters. There was also a referral for a mascot alarm. A key safe is now in place. That's the form where people can rush to you from Merton Council if you have a fall. Mr. Peters now said he felt socially isolated, so support workers have made referrals to Age UK Merton, supported by Merton Council, funded by Merton Council. Age UK Merton provides social support, ongoing shopping and cleaning support. Re-ablement now visit 3 times a day instead of 4, and this will be reduced even more as Mr. Peters gains his confidence. Mr. Peters says he's happy, he's regaining his confidence and his independence, which is what he wanted. That's Mr. Peters. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes up 45% of our income. To look after people like Mr. Peters. It's a statutory duty. We will continue to do that. And it's important that we as a council make the relevant savings, sometimes referred to as cuts, to make sure that we continue to look after people like Mr. Peters. Not only people like Mr. Peters and our social care, but children. We are a corporate parent to about 200 looked after children. We look after them. We are their parents. Another statutory duty. And our children's services here in the London Borough of Merton were assessed as good with outstanding in various features by Ofsted. And the inspection of a council, the biggest inspection and the one on which its reputation hangs, is the inspection by Ofsted of its children's services. Does this council look after the most vulnerable people that live in its area? And this council does, and other councils don't. The Tory flagship borough of Wandsworth, inadequate children's services. I'm proud of this council, what it does for children's services, for people like Mr. Peters. But we've had to make tough decisions, and we will continue to make tough decisions as we continue to try and make sure that we allocate funding to those most vulnerable of our residents. And one of those tough decisions was the wheelie bin collection service, to make savings of over £1 million to make sure that we can look after people like Mr. Peters and our children. And I acknowledge that that new waste collection service isn't working and meeting your expectations. And we are doing all we can to press upon Veolia to make sure they come up to standard. And we will continue to do so. What is working is that the pictures you see on television of landfill, of mountains with rubbish being stuffed into mountains, that's a thing of the past for this council. We do not do that anymore. And our recycling, thanks to you and the new waste collection service, has gone up to 45% recycling, to one of the tops in the country. And that's why Friends of the Earth, not some too-big charity, Friends of the Earth, one of the most prestigious, influential charities in the world, has said that we are joint second when it comes to tackling climate change. Thank you to Nick for reminding me of that. So, as a council, we need to support you and support everyone, residents, and support our voluntary sector. And if you are a volunteer, I want to thank you all. And we continue to support, as a council, Merton Voluntary Service Council itself. We support so that they themselves support organisations that are run by volunteers. Merton and Morden Guild continues to get support from the London Borough of Merton. We allocate £1 million a year to support the voluntary sector, unheard of amongst other councils. Friends in St Helier, an organisation that's been going for a number of years, and Councillor Mary Curtin is here, who's been involved closely from its inception. We continue to support organisations like Friends in St Helier, very, very well steeped in Morden. We support organisations like AFC Wimbledon, the biggest footballing story that's currently doing the rounds, of a club kicked out of Wimbledon by the FA, out to Milton Keynes, restarted again, and now on its way back to Plough Lane, where it was. Because this council, on an all-party basis, my friend here from the opposition, we have a Liberal Democrat here as well, we have Labour, we have Independents, we all wanted the club to come back to the borough. And we've done everything we can, and they are coming back to the borough. With a 9,000 to 10,000 seater stadium going up to 20,000, joining Brentford with its new stadium. Not as big as Spurs, 63,000, and so on. But the regeneration of that whole area of Wimbledon Park is going to be something to see. A community club coming back to the borough. Because the borough itself, on an all-party basis, has done everything it can. And I want to thank Future Merton team for all they've done, and officers here, to persuade the inspector that that site, the dog track site, had to be for sporting intensification. Without that, the inspector may have said it can be all housing. It's not all housing. There is housing, 32% will be affordable, but there will be a football club there as well. Thousands of people, big numbers, very happy with that decision. We also need to support our local hospital, St Helier Hospital, under threat from the powers that be to denude it of its A&E, of its maternity, by building a brand new hospital in Belmont and Sutton. So we will continue to do what we can by working closely with the Member of Parliament, Siobhan McDonagh, to do all we can to support that hospital to stay exactly where it is with all its services. It's where my children were born. I'm sure you've all got a history with St Henry Hospital. It is improving. I want to give credit to the Chief Executive there, David Elkins. He is improving that hospital, but I want him to build a new hospital if he gets given money there, a brand new St Henry Hospital on that site, because that's where the need is felt most. We will continue to support our libraries. 500 libraries closed since 2010. It's an easy thing to close. Oh, there's the internet, there's distance, people can get it on Google, there's bookshops. Why keep your libraries open? We support our libraries. Not only have we kept all our libraries open, we've built a brand new dementia-friendly library in College. And again, a big thanks to the volunteers that have made that possible. Every library open. And Nick was cabinet member at the time when we went in for Library of the Year for Collinswood. We came second. We just didn't get over that line to be the best library, the Library of the Year. Do you know which city won? The great city of Liverpool. They came first. And it's no shame to come second to that great city of Liverpool. So we support we support our schools in Morden, in Ravensbury, my ward since 2003, Harris, in Lithershall Road, a school that had a history, Garth Road, Bishopford, outstanding, serving the needs of the parents. The school is outstanding, and that's what we need to do. And that's why we're building a brand new school in South Wimbledon. It's already oversubscribed in the way it's starting in Cannon Hill, in Wockley Avenue. Oversubscribed. About 200 kids there. September 2020, brand new school, South Wimbledon. And we expanded 23 primary schools. Not with a porter cabin, but with well-designed extensions to them, creating 4,500 extra primary school places. And the shame of out-of-borough schooling is stopped in this borough. People come to this borough because of our schools. Before, they used to leave the borough. They used to send their kids to Sutton and to Kingston, to Tiffins and to Wallington Girls. They don't do that anymore. Because our schools are good and outstanding. Because we're business-like, we bridge the gap, we're a great place for families in this borough. This is happening as we speak. Great schools, and we need to continue to support them. We need to support the regeneration of our three estates, and we do. Ravensbury, Eastfields, Highbury, sorting out overcrowding. And we still need to do more work with Clarion on their repairs and maintenance. They've still got a long way to go on that. But on regeneration, we do fully support them. We support our veterans. We have the headquarters of Hague Homes. They are the specialist organisation in the UK for veterans accommodation. Our veterans who fight for our safety abroad, whether it's the Second World War, the First World War, and in any combat situation. They need housing. The headquarters of the organisation that provides veterans housing is here in Morden. And last Friday, Her Majesty the Queen was here to open their 60+ new residences for our veterans. And we work hand in glove with Hague Homes as a local authority. And it's a great honour for them to be able to have brought the Queen back to one of their homes after 70 years, where she last opened to the year, one of their homes in Jersey. 70 years later, she was here in Morden. And I'm really proud of Hague Homes being here in Morden and the partnership that we have with them. Homes for veterans, that's what we want more of, and Hague Homes are here. I want to pay a tribute to Councillor Dennis Pearce, our Armed Forces champion, for all the work he does for our armed forces and for making sure we abide by our Armed Forces Covenant and for Armed Forces Day that happens every year here, a recognition of our armed services. Just a few accolades that we're receiving. I'm sure you want to track them and acknowledge them. An organisation called My London said that we're the 4th best place for families, 4th out of 30+ boroughs. And that's something to acknowledge. Another organisation said in terms of autumn walks, number 9 in London is Morning Park. In Ravensbury Ward, in my ward, another excellent accolade for that enormous and very, very lovely park that we have here in the London Borough of Merton. I mentioned Friends of the Earth, that we're all very, very proud of. And finally, for me, I don't know what's happening in the House of Commons. I don't know what comedy there is there, but here in this chamber, in this council chamber, with all party support, Nick, the Independents, the Liberal Democrats and Labour, we will support our EU citizens, 24,000 EU citizens. We have all party support for a Brexit strategy here in Merton to look after 24,000 EU citizens. We've allocated funds for a dedicated officer to work in the Citizens Advice Bureau, a trusted port of call on EU settled status cases. We've allocated £10,000 to officers to look at the crisis in recruitment of social workers as a result of Brexit that we will have, whether we have a deal or no deal. So we have a cabinet member with special responsibility for the implications of Brexit for this area, a director who has a task group and a strategy group on Brexit and how we can deal with that to soften the blow for our EU citizens who we love dearly and who are worried at this moment in time about their settled status. So that's a council-wide picture from my end. Please bear in mind those pressures on local authorities for children's services and for adult social care. Huge pressures, not enough money going into the system, and that forces us to make some very tough decisions in other areas. So we will, as a council, continue to be a great place for families, bridge the gap between the west and the east of the borough, and continue to be business-like, so there is money for that bridge, and there is, whether it is for a repair or for a brand new bridge. We will look at that. I will call a special meeting. I will not wait for the calendar of meetings of the Cabinet. Once we get that report, I will call a speedy Cabinet meeting, and we are insured, we are self-insured, we have monies for those kinds of issues, and that's because we are a business-like council. We are not able, thanks to the council or other councils, in deep trouble, going bust or bankrupt. And we will continue to do all we can to look after all our residents. We're not a tribal borough. I get on very well with all colleagues here, with the Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives and the Independents. And we do what we can together in the interests of our residents. We have our differences sometimes, but in the main, this is not a tribal borough. It's a borough that works in the interests of residents. Thank you. Very happy to take questions.
3 short questions, okay? Eve first. You have one, please.
Thank you for letting me know about the lids for recycle bins. I drove over from South Wimbledon to the tip, where it was Garth Road today and picked up some lids. So obviously I added to the pollution and the poor air quality in the borough, but I do now have lids that fit the boxes, so thank you for that. I hear I just missed you at the tip yesterday, having an office clear out and disposing of some paper for recycling.
Is there a question?
Yes, there is. Are you aware that the vehicle used needed a waste operator's licence, and did it have one? And did you have a waste transfer notice from the tip, which is required to confirm that you are transferring the waste legally?
I don't know what you're on about.
I think that's actually a fairly impertinent question. Has anyone got a sensible question for Sir?
Yeah, so, okay, I'll ask my question. Active travel, we currently have no sidewalks do you plan to replace it as soon as possible, and would you be willing to use the opportunity afforded by the current emergency to expand our ambitions and recycling?
Yeah, I've been talking to Katie about that. I'll raise that for you.
Madam.
Is there going to be a plan for recycling wheelie bins for recycling at all? Or can we use them if we want to, if we buy them ourselves? I know in Kingston Council you have a choice to get a wheelie bin for recycling.
I could look at that for you. I don't have the answer about recycling.
Because a lot of the recycling ends up down the road and not in the recycling bins when they're open.
That's why we can now please.
So, question on statement.
I don't know. A question regarding Mr. Peters, similar but different to what I've asked before. I'm going to have to make assumptions here that Mr. Peters. Yes, I'm going to. But it requires Mr. Peters in his maisonette on the fourth floor, let's say, of the Bollards Hill of the Fitzbridge estate. So there are 60 steps to that maisonette. In hospital, Mr. Peters strikes up a friendship with 87-year-old Mr. Jones, and they would like to get together. But Mr. Jones, although Mr. Jones is able to get from his 8th floor flat in a lift to the ground, he is unable to carry out social interaction with Mr. Peters because he cannot climb up the 60 steps. At this present time, we also know that Mr. Peters is unable to descend.
I'm sorry, I was going to move on to another question.
What steps within the regeneration policy for 4-storey buildings where there are 60 steps or even 15 to ensure that there is lift access so that people can have full social interaction, not only by getting out and about, but so that other people who may have mobility difficulties can actually get to them?
Put that in an email to me.
I raised it in the original estates plan. It's within that. It's within my questions.
The problem with people making statements rather than asking questions is it means that other people don't get to ask questions. Is there anybody else who wants to ask a question of the leader of the council? Is it a genuine question this time, Eve?
Well, it's a question and a suggestion. Going back to the lids for the recycle boxes, which are really essential to stop the plastic waste flying around at the first gust of wind. Can there be some arrangement to supply these across the borough for people? Because obviously you have to go to Garth Road by vehicle. You are not allowed to walk into Garth Road. That's a policy they have, so you must be in a vehicle. A lot of people don't have vehicles, it's going to add a lot of pollution, etc. Can there be set up some way of distributing those lids across the borough by having pick-up points in different wards, etc.?
Yeah, no, look at that.
Right. Is there anybody else got one last question? We've got 2 minutes. No? Okay, well, then we'll still finish ahead of schedule. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you also to future Merton. Thank you to Kate. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much indeed.